You know, one of the biggest things I've realized is that people who are very analytical, they're highly successful, they're career driven, they're very logical. They don't think a lot in emotions. They think in terms more of logic. And a lot of them, but not all of them, do tend to have more difficulties with interpersonal relationships. They're not always catching on to patterns, like behavioral patterns as I like to call them. And when you're not catching onto social signs like your tone, your behavior, even the way you're phrasing certain sentences, people will take it the wrong way, and then you're like, shouldn't it be their fault? And you might also be thinking, well, I shouldn't worry how other people perceive me. I should be able to say what I want. And it's not my fault if they perceive me a different way. But what I always like to say is that human interactions include two or more people. And we communicate with behavioral patterns, with our behaviors, what we do, what we tend to do in response to other people. And when you don't do that, when you don't calibrate your behavior, when you don't pay attention to the other person's social signals, if you don't pick up on those, that's where you get interactions that don't go in your favor. That's when you start getting confused. That's when, for example, if you're at your workplace and you tell someone to do something, they take it completely the wrong way. And then you're confused. You think it's all about them, which some of the times it might be, but a lot of the times it can be a problem to do with you, the way you're telling them to do things. Depending on the person that you're interacting with, you need to change up your tone, change up a bit about how you're phrasing words, for example. And this isn't called self-abandonment or anything. Think about it. The way I talk to myself is different compared to as if I'm talking to even the camera. There's things that I say to myself that I won't say in front of the camera, right? That is exactly the same. I'm not saying you should change who you are as a person, but there's certain ways of thinking that you need to be able to have. And when you can implement these different structures, these different methods of thinking, and I know this sounds logical, but this is the way more analytical people are able to succeed better in their interpersonal relationships, since in their careers, in their jobs or whatever, in their skills, they're already in that super analytical mindset. If I'm talking to someone who's an engineer, a lab technician, for example, certain very analytical people who are all about their career, they kind of lack these EQ, emotional, interpersonal skills. If I tell them to, okay, well, just pick up on their signals, just, feel their emotion, just feel their energy, they're not going to be able to apply that. Like you, if you're watching this and you're the type of person that I'm kind of talking to right now and you understand how this kind of feels, it feels foreign when I'm saying, oh, well, just feel their vibes, just feel their energy. That's too energetical. That's too, emotional. That language is emotional, and that's not how you communicate, and I get that. I've been around people, for example, my degree was in psychology, BSc, so science, but I also had to take courses in the arts field. And so I interacted with a lot of people who were on both kind of sides. The more science, the more STEM side, the more art side. And yes, that's in terms of education courses. That is completely still different, as opposed to people who are more logical, people who are more emotional. But that's to say that I've seen people in real life who don't really have that emotional aspect. They take things in a very logical way. And when you try to apply that to relationships, in a way it can make things harder, but if you know exactly how to apply it in a way that you can understand it, in a way that is logical and analytical to you, it can still work.